So we are in Yeongdo, the harbor. This is a warehouse in the harbor, and this is the chapter of Kim Un-soo. Kim Un-soo is a Busan-based crime writer. He has written several novels and is an internationally acclaimed writer. And part of his fictions takes place here in the Yeongdo harbor. That's why we've placed this chapter here. And the story is called The Seal Inn, and it deals with longing. It's about sailors in the harbor. So both about history, about memory, and about Busan seen from a historical perspective. And now we're in the middle of an installation by a young Korean artist. She was born in Busan. She's from 1986, and when she was 11 years old, she moved to Oakland. She's made this installation, as you can see. It's a labyrinth, steel bars, and she was very inspired by the ceiling, by the structure of the building. And in this maze, this labyrinth of metal bars, she has placed daily objects like cups, like a gas, light, seating, beds, everything that you have in a normal household, but taken apart, fragmented. And also kind of like both a mixture of being personal and non-personal. Now we are going upstairs to Dave Hallfish Bailey, who is an American artist. And Dave Hallfish Bailey, he's one of these artists that is very interested in research. He's very much interested in the site that he's exhibiting. So he usually goes to the site, does research on site where he's exhibiting. But of course of COVID-19, he couldn't come to Busan. So he had to think about Korea. He had to think about how he would deal with the harbor, how he would deal with Kim Un-soo's story. And one of the things that he found interesting was he's from 1963. So what he has done, he has merged the Korean landscape here, the Korean rivers, the local Busan areas with where he lives in California. So this is the area where MASH was filmed to imitate Korea. So there are elements of photographs from the film, but there are also he collected clay. He collected clay from the San Francisco mountains, and then he wrote in Korean. He wrote words that deals with the landscape with the same clay. So he's kind of like a new generation conceptual land artist. He's concerned about the land. He's interested in the land, the soil that we live on, and how it meets the culture. These rotors they're called augers, and they're basically used to drill underwater to make passageways and channels in the water. So there's a lot of elements that puts the American history together with the Korean history, with the Heechung dynasty, like these plates that has this circular shapes. This is the space of Amalie Schmidt. Amalie Schmidt is born in 1985. She's a Danish artist, and she basically did a 3D film. So you need to wear 3D glasses to see this film. She did most of the film when she was on a residency in Cyprus, which is an island in the southern part of Europe, in the Mediterranean, between Greece and Turkey. And she was in Nicosia in the Greek part. There she was researching terracotta sculptures, which are early sculptures made by humans. And these are archaeological finds, one of the first sort of like imitations of human beings. And she was interested in this, in the terracotta sculptures as archaeological finds. And at the same time she found these by the sea, by the coastal line, which are leftovers, human remains, bottles, plastics, that maybe in 1,000 years or 2,000 years the next archaeological site will dig up these. And is this what we are going to want to be remembered by? In the film we have archaeologists and art historians talking about representation of life, about human beings, both as a sort of like a post-human, but also as like archaeological terracotta sculptures. We just saw Amalie Schmidt. She deals with like history and human remains. Here we look at the artist from Singapore called Robert. Robert, he's very much interested in how urban life meets nature, how nature goes into urban settings or the other way around. And he does a lot of photographs, he does a lot of video. And in this exhibition he has developed a new piece. He did a lot of Google search, online Google search, to try and find plants and vegetations and trees in the urban setting of Yeongdo. And together with one of the exhibition team members, he went to the Google images are usually a little bit older than what has happened. The city developed so much, so the trees he saw online didn't exist anymore. But then they found this house. This house is right behind this exhibition space. And as you can see, it's like an abandoned house. The doors are out, the windows are out, but there's a tree that has developed and grown from the bottom of the ground. So what he did was he installed surveillance cameras in different locations of the windows, on the walls, and during a period of weeks he filmed the action. Korean artist Yeongdo. I experienced this in Art Space Pool some years ago, a different version, and I thought it would be ideal to show this kind of fake waterfall in the Yeongdo harbor. He basically builds the waterfall with like plastics and like things, elements that can be scrapped or can be found in the harbor, and then he builds up this environment. Here we have Daiga. Daiga is born in Latvia in 1985. She works a lot with like plastics and latex and metals and kind of industrial materials, but she manages to turn them into sculptures that almost seems like organic parts. Here we have two video pieces by Charles Lim. He's born in 1973 in Singapore. And Singapore is kind of let's say a sea state. It's a state that has developed and gained huge influence by its positioning in the water. And Charles is very much interested in like what water represents, how water represents both prosperity but also represents growth and colonialism. Kim Heechung, he's born in 1989. He's a Korean artist based in Seoul, and he's one of the artists that has several works in the biennial, both in public spaces, but also here in Yeongdo. And the video you'll see in here, he's interested in, or he has researched in diving. Researched in underwater life, deep sea underwater life. So he thought it was appropriate to have this piece in Yeongdo and in Kim Un-soo's chapter. So the Busan Biennial 2020 has the writers, it has the visual artists, and it has the musicians. And as you can hear over here, the soundtrack of 11 musicians are played. They have read the stories. Some have, actually quite a few of the musicians live in Busan. They have created soundscapes for the city. And these are like urban soundscapes that represents the stories and the city. And they're going to be played from over here and projected into this landscape. And there are 11 musicians, 11 soundtracks, all representing the stories and the narratives in the stories.